Hey everybody, this is Jimmy and Brian from the Teespring design team. Today we're going to show you some of the basics of how to create those ugly Christmas and holiday sweater designs that everybody loves. So let's get started. In this section, we're going to go over some of the basics that you'll need to get going on some of these projects. So first thing we're going to do is go over to our brushes panel and just drag the brush right over onto the artboard. And this will turn it into one solid object, or in this case, one stitch that we can work with. And now, if you hold Alt while you click and drag the object, it'll multiply that many times. So that way you can create multiple objects, say you want to lay it out in one solid piece. But you could also just create a line using the pen tool or the line segment tool, and then click on the brush in the brushes panel, and that will create one line with all of the pattern on it that you might need. Now we're going to create another line using the pen tool, and this time we're going to click on the snowflake pattern. As you can see, it just automatically fills in that line with the pattern of the snowflakes, and it'll repeat for as long as you make the line. Now these can be used to fill in space and everything. Now if you select everything and go up to Object and select Expand Appearance, it will turn all of these stroked lines or these patterns into solid objects that you can manipulate as you need. Now we're going to show you how to take one single object and turn it into a pattern. So if you move it and copy and paste an object in there, you can go to Effect, Distort and Transform Effect. This will allow you to play around with a few things. So if you hit Preview, it'll show you what you're doing as you're doing it. And in this case, we'll try to make some horizontal copies, so copies going across. So you'll select 20 copies in this case, and then play around with the horizontal panel and get it to a look that you think looks right to you. Now we're going to use that same technique to create a pattern that's going in a vertical column. So same tool, use the Distort and Transform and then Transform Effect. But in this case, instead of playing with the horizontal scale, you'll be playing with the vertical scale. So as before, hit Preview, make as many copies as you want, and then just play around with the dial. You can either type in specific settings or take the dial back and forth until you get it to a point that you feel it looks good. Now we're going to use that same technique one more time to create a box of a pattern. So select an entire row of the pattern and go through the same settings that you just did for the vertical path. And now it creates a box of this pattern. Chances are, once you make these patterns, they might not be in the color that you'd like to appear on your shirt. So here's how to recolor them. First, select your pattern, and now hit Object and Expand Path, and this will transform them into solid objects. Now you can either use the Direct Select tool, which is the white arrow, or the Lasso tool to select your object, and then you can just go over to your swatches panel and then pick whatever color you'd like to use instead. Now in this section, we're going to show you how to take that pattern and make it into new shapes. So for this part, we're going to start with the pattern that we've provided. It's just one big sheet of all the stitch pattern just thrown together and they're solid objects, so they're ready to work with. Now go over to where you have the object that you want to work with, or the shape you want to work with, and copy it and paste it into the pattern file so we can start manipulating how that looks. Now you can scale it to as big or small as you want, depending on how much pattern you want to be able to fill the object. Once you've gotten it to a size you like, we'll have to turn it into a compound path, and this can be done by hitting Command 8 on a Mac or Control 8 on a PC. This compound path will allow you to cut out the pattern into the shape of the heart fairly easily. And then you can use a clipping path to mask out what you want to see of the pattern. So you select both objects and hit either Command or Control 7, and it turns it into a clipping mask. This just hides whatever is not behind the heart and shows what is behind the heart. And if you select that and go to your Pathfinder panel and hit -back, it will delete everything that's not shown, turning it into a solid object that you can once again manipulate as you see fit. Now, there will be some little edges here and there that you might want to trim out. It depends on how much detail you want to get into on this. In this section, we're going to go over some more shape making and how to put them into layouts. So as you see here, we have a layout that we've provided, and we also have the shape of a Santa head. This is just really simple, pretty traditional Christmas imagery if you're trying to make a Christmas shirt. And we also have a wreath with some bells on it. Now you can resize these to the pattern that you're going to work with. So you size them as you'd like, and then you can just drag them off to the side. And now we'll use the same technique that we used for the heart, but this time we'll be using them for the Santa and the wreath. So we're going to be using some techniques from the previous sections to get these done. The first thing we can do is make the clipping path the same way that we did with the heart, but there are also a couple manual ways to do it if you want to get into the real nitty-gritty of how to make these. So if you drag over the pattern from the brushes panel, you can drag out once again one of the just individual pieces, and you can manually place it wherever you want. And some people like to do this so they can really fill in the shape as they want to see it filled. But there's also another technique which simply involves erasing around an object. So you can take your direct select tool, or you can take your lasso tool as you see here, and just select around the object so you can start to delete some of these stitch paths and then just go in individually, stitch by stitch, removing them. And this can help make like a really homemade kind of effect. What we're finally going to use, however, is the clipping path technique because it is the quickest way to do it. Although, once again, it does leave some little edges here and there that you might want to trim out at the end just to clean it up a little bit, or you might like to leave them in there because it does show off the outline of the shape that you were working with initially. So you can take your new shape, recolor it as you need to. Like in this case, it's going on a red background, so it can't be red. So we're making it white. You could also make it green if you'd like to. And using the same technique that we used to repeat the patterns previously, we're going to use it to repeat this entire object using the transform effect tool. So we're going to make 3 copies, preview it, and then space it out in a way that makes it look evenly spaced out and centered within the background that we've created. And you can still adjust it as you need to. And then if you hit expand, it'll once again just turn into solid objects that you can manipulate individually as opposed to having to manipulate all 4 at a time. Now we're going to use this exact same technique with the wreath. Same thing, making the compound path, which is important for objects like this that have multiple pieces. They absolutely need to be compound paths before you can cut them out like this. Otherwise, you'll get a completely garbled mess. So once again, we're using the clipping path. Going to turn it white so it shows up on the red background. And we're just going to repeat it using effect, transform, and just playing around with the settings until once again it looks right. This is going to be different for every object and every shape that you use because they all fit into backgrounds a little bit differently. And now we have our pattern laid out that we can put some text in, or it can even be ready to upload to a shirt if you think that this looks finished. But we're going to add some text to this just to fill it in a little bit more. So we like to use some pixelated fonts. In this case, we're using, it's called Minecraft. As you can see, you can lay it out manually like you can with any other object. But once again, we're going to use the clipping path because it is the easiest way to do it and the quickest. Now you can just drag it into the center, make any cleanups that you need, and you have a ready-to-go design that will work for your ugly Christmas sweater t-shirt design. Now, we know a lot of you out there don't have, say, Illustrator or other image editing software like we do on the design team. So we're going to show you how to do a similar design using only the composer. As you can see, we've already uploaded the background design that we've provided for you. And now we're just going to upload the Santa icon. So once it uploads, we can resize it and move it to where we want within the background pattern. Then once you get it to a size that you like, you can start to move it around to get your proper placement and then hit the duplicate button so then you can start repeating it. Once you have enough Santas to fill the row, in this case we're going to do 4, then you can start adjusting their placement so they're a little bit more evenly spaced out. And all of this is just a judgment call. You can do it however you see fit and whatever looks good to you, or what you think would be appealing to your buyers. Now we're just going to do that same thing again, but with the wreath image this time. So once it uploads, you can arrange it, resize it how you like, and then just hit the duplicate button, and then rearrange it once again in however you see fit. Now we're just going to add in a little bit of text. For this, we're going to use the font Lobster, change it to the red that we have in use, and just write in Merry and Christmas. Now we're going to do it separately so then we can adjust the sizing individually on each word. So you fill in Christmas, and there you have it. Thank you for watching this video. Now, if you need to rewatch it at any time, feel more than free. You can pause it. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can slow it down. So you can go through various sections as many times as you need. And a lot of these techniques can be used for many other designs, not just these Christmas sweater designs. If you need any other assistance, you can always feel free to reach out to design@teespring.com, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you, and have a great day.